I mean this in the nicest way possible. You need to be a better friend. This is I Mean This in the Nicest Way Possible, and I'm your host, Richard Armand Mills. Let's get one thing clear right away. This is not me telling you to become endlessly available, overly accommodating, or performatively nice. This is not about people pleasing. And it's definitely not about answering every text message immediately or showing up when you're completely depleted just to prove you care. This is about emotional maturity, integrity in relationships, consistency instead of convenience, being safe to love, safe to trust, and safe to grow with. Because the real question isn't, do you have friends? It's, are you actually good to the people who love you? A lot of people think they're a good friend because they have good intentions, because they care, because in their head, they're loyal, because they believe that if it really mattered, they'd show up. But friendship isn't your intention. It's your patterns. Difficulty does not absolve responsibility. We tend to want closeness, but we don't always want to initiate. And part of being a better friend is being honest about who's actually a friend, not just a familiar face. Some people are acquaintances. Some people are activity buddies. Some people are fun in groups, but not so fun one-on-one. And most friendship damage doesn't come from dramatic betrayal. It doesn't come from some explosive falling out. It comes from the quiet stuff, the slow erosion that's easy to rationalize. Neglect, flakiness, one-sided effort, passive resentment, unspoken competition, disappearing acts, I'm busy, turning into a permanent personality trait instead of a temporary season. You can be a genuinely good person and still be a lazy friend. You can have a big heart and still leave people feeling unchosen. You can love someone and still not know how to treat them well. And if your friendships keep feeling off, if things keep fading, drifting, getting weird, or quietly dissolving, the fix might not be finding new people. It might be becoming more emotionally responsible with the people you already have. I had to face that myself. There were moments where I realized I wasn't showing up the way I thought I was. Moments where I outgrew friendships. Not because anyone was evil, but because I got tired of carrying the connection alone. Moments where I finally understood the difference between saying I love you and actually knowing how to love someone. Because I love you is a feeling. I know how to treat you is a skill. And a lot of us were never taught that skill. We were taught how to be fun, how to be likable, how to be chill, how to avoid conflict, how to not ask for too much. But we were not taught how to be consistent, accountable, emotionally present adults in our friendships. So in today's episode, we're talking about the ways people are accidentally being bad friends, even when they mean well. The psychology behind flakiness, avoidance, and low-effort intimacy. How to repair without groveling. How to set boundaries without disappearing. How to show up even when life is heavy. And how to tell when a friendship is worth saving versus when it's ready to be released. Because being a better friend isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about responsibility. And it's about understanding that love isn't what you claim. It's what you consistently practice. Let's talk about the quiet ways friendships fall apart now. Not through blowups or betrayal, but through erosion. Through habits we've normalized. Through behaviors that feel small in the moment, but add up to something relationally unsafe. Psychologist Julian Holt-Lunstad, who studies social connection and health, has been clear about this. Our nervous systems don't distinguish between romantic neglect and platonic neglect. Inconsistent or low-quality relationships still register as stress, not neutrality. And over time, that stress accumulates. And to be clear, this isn't just about feelings. Friendship isn't just emotionally nice to have. It's biologically protective. Strong social connection is linked to lower stress, better mental health outcomes, and more resilience over time. So when we talk about being a better friend, we're not talking about etiquette. We're talking about relationship quality. And relationship quality impacts how people feel in their bodies and function in their lives. So let's name the modern friendship sins for what they are. First, flakiness as a personality. Not the occasional cancel, because life happens. I'm talking about chronic rescheduling, vague messages of "we should hang out soon," and disappearing acts dressed up as being busy. Research on relationship psychology shows that predictability is one of the core ingredients of psychological safety. When someone is consistently inconsistent, the brain doesn't read that as casual. It reads it as unreliable. And unreliable connections don't feel like connection at all. They feel like low-grade rejection. Second, convenience-based love. This is the friend who shows up when it's easy, when it's fun, when it benefits them socially, emotionally, or logistically. But when things get hard, awkward, or inconvenient, that's when they go ghost. Clinical psychologist Marissa G. Franco, who studies adult friendship, explains that high-quality friendships are defined less by frequency and more by responsiveness. Do you show up when it counts, or only when it's comfortable? Convenience teaches people where they rank, whether you intend that or not. Third, one-sided emotional labor. One person always initiating, always checking in, always remembering birthdays, hard weeks, or emotional shifts. Over time, that imbalance creates burnout. Research on adult friendship points out that reciprocity doesn't mean perfect equality, but it does mean mutual investment. When one person becomes the emotional infrastructure of the relationship, the bond stops feeling mutual and starts feeling transactional. Fourth, passive resentment. Unspoken scorekeeping. The quiet coldness. The "I'm fine" that clearly isn't fine. Social psychologist Talia Wheatley, whose work explores social connection and attunement, notes that unresolved relational tension doesn't disappear. It shows up physiologically. Distance replaces warmth. And when resentment goes unspoken, it doesn't protect the relationship. It slowly poisons it. And finally, performative support. Liking the post, sending the fire emoji, skipping the hard part. Real support, according to multiple studies on social connection, involves presence, not performance. The brain responds to felt support, not visible engagement. Someone can cheer you on publicly and still abandon you privately, and your nervous system knows the difference. None of these behaviors make someone a villain, but collectively, they create friendships that look alive on the surface and feel empty underneath. And that's the part we don't talk about enough. Most people aren't trying to be bad friends. They're trying to avoid discomfort. And that's where things quietly go sideways. Like avoidance patterns, conflict avoidance, discomfort avoidance, intimacy avoidance. These don't look dramatic. They look polite. They look chill. But behavioral scientist Nicholas Epley's research shows that people routinely underestimate how meaningful, honest, vulnerable interaction actually is, and overestimate how awkward and damaging it will feel. So instead of saying the thing, we ignore it. Instead of addressing tension, we distance. Avoidance feels safer in the moment, but over time, it trains relationships to stay shallow and fragile. Then there's burnout culture turning friendship into an extra. In American culture, productivity gets priority, romance gets priority, work gets priority. Friendship typically gets whatever's left over. But research on social connection makes something clear. This framing is backwards. Friendship isn't a bonus layer of life. It's a biological and psychological foundation. When people treat friendship like an optional add-on instead of core infrastructure, they unintentionally starve one of the systems that keep them regulated, resilient, and mentally well. Next, the digital illusion. We confuse access with intimacy. Constant texting, watching stories, liking posts, feeling caught up without actually being connected. Research on social relationships make this clear. Frequency of contact does not equal emotional closeness. The brain responds to responsiveness, presence, and shared experience, not passive awareness. Knowing what someone posted is not the same as knowing how they're doing. Now let's get into the adult friendship drift. Life gets louder. Routines change. jobs, partners, moves, grief, growth. All of it rearranges the calendar. Franco's research explains that friendships don't usually end because of a fight. They end because of neglect during transition periods. Drift isn't malicious, it's unintentional. But without intentional repair, distance becomes the default setting. And lastly, emotional immaturity. A lot of adults equate no conflict with healthy, but that's not health, that's suppression. Relationship research consistently shows that strong friendships aren't conflict-free, they're repair-capable. People who lack emotional maturity often disappear at the first sign of friction, believing harmony means never being uncomfortable. In reality, growth requires friction, and safety is built through repair, not silence. So when friendships start to feel thin, it's rarely because people stopped caring. It's because they stopped engaging deeply, mistaking avoidance for peace, busyness for boundaries, and digital closeness for real connection. This is where a lot of people get confused and accidentally hurt the people they care about. Because boundaries and neglect can sound similar, but they do very different things to a relationship. A boundary sounds like clarity. I can't do tonight, but I can do Thursday. It gives information. It gives continuity. It signals, I still want you here, I'm just managing my capacity. Franco's research on adult friendships explains that healthy boundaries actually increase closeness because they reduce uncertainty. People feel safer when they know where they stand. A boundary protects the relationship by preventing resentment and burnout before they build. Neglect, on the other hand, sounds vague. I've just been so busy. No reschedule, no follow-up, no ownership. Research on relationship responsiveness shows that what damages friendships most isn't conflict, it's low responsiveness. When bids for connection are repeatedly met with silence or non-answers, the brain doesn't interpret that as neutrality. It interprets it as rejection. Even when the intent isn't malicious, the impact still lands. Here's the key difference. A boundary contains direction. Neglect contains disappearance. A boundary says, I'm still here, just not right now. Neglect says, you'll have to guess how much you matter. Research on social connection consistently shows that relationship quality, not just relationship presence, is what protects mental and physical health. That means friendships don't erode because someone couldn't show up once. They erode when people stop signaling care, reliability, and future intention. Neglect is especially insidious because it claims innocence. No fight, no blow up, no obvious villain. Just distance slowly normalized. And over time, the relationship doesn't end, it expires. Not because anyone was cruel, but because no one was clear. This is where a lot of people think they're doing the work, but they're actually just performing remorse. Because repair is not a long paragraph. It's not a dramatic confession. And it's definitely not self-hate disguised as accountability. Research on adult friendship maintenance makes this clear. Repair doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. Over-explaining often centers the discomfort of the person who messed up, not the safety of the person who was impacted. Real repair is actually very simple. Not easy, but simple. First, you'll want to identify the impact, not your intention, not your stress, not your backstory, just the impact. Saying things like, I disappeared, and that likely made you feel unimportant. Research on relationship trust shows that feeling emotionally seen and accurately understood is one of the strongest predictors of relational safety. When people feel like their experience is being named correctly, their nervous system can finally stand down. Second, you'll want to state the change, not a promise to do better, a specific adjustment. Saying things like, I won't leave messages unanswered anymore. If I can't engage, I'll say that directly. This matters because relationship quality is built through predictability. People don't need perfection. They need to know what they can expect from you. And third, the part people skip, following through once and then again. Because an apology only becomes real after behavior changes. Saying I'm sorry doesn't heal anything if the same wound keeps reopening. Repair isn't a moment. It's a pattern interruption. It's choosing to show up differently when it would be easiest not to. That's why so many friendships fail after apologies. Not because forgiveness wasn't given, but because safety was never rebuilt. And safety isn't restored by words alone. It's restored by repetition. If you want proof that long-term friendship doesn't survive on vibes, it survives on emotional maturity, look at Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, alongside Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. These friendships last for the same reason. They're built on honesty without threat and loyalty without possession. Tina Fey and Amy Poehler's friendship spans more than 3 decades, beginning in Chicago improv and continuing through SNL, film, producing, and separate creative empires. What's consistent in coverage and interviews about their relationship is that their closeness isn't rooted in constant proximity. It's rooted in mutual respect and emotional safety. They don't compete. They don't collapse into each other's identities. And they don't require constant validation to stay connected. In interviews, both women emphasize that they don't need to be involved in every part of each other's lives to feel secure in the bond. That's a critical distinction because psychological research on adult friendship shows that high-quality friendships are defined by consistency and trust, not frequency or intensity. Fey and Poehler are also clear about something many people avoid admitting. They're not identical, and they don't pretend to be. They support each other publicly, critique honestly in private, and allow space for separate growth without framing distance as betrayal. That's not accidental. It's emotionally regulated behavior. Now contrast that with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Their friendship shows the same core traits expressed differently. They openly joke about each other's flaws, punctuality, messiness, intensity, but always stop short of contempt. In interviews and public conversations, even when they name irritations, they consistently reinforce character and loyalty. That balance matters, because research on relationship repair and maintenance shows that conflict handled with humor and respect strengthens bonds, while unspoken resentment quietly erodes them. Both friendships demonstrate the same truth. Closeness doesn't require perfection. It requires truth without punishment. It requires tolerance without scorekeeping. And it requires repair without drama. These aren't celebrity friendships that last because of fame. They last because the people in them learned how to be safe for each other. For a long time, my friendship story was about chasing. Not in an obvious way, not begging people to stay, but in the quiet, socially acceptable way. I was the one initiating, the one following up, the one smoothing over flakiness and telling myself it was fine. I kept investing in friendships that felt fun, exciting, cool to be associated with, but weren't actually giving anything back. At the time, I didn't see it as chasing. I told myself I was being loyal, generous even, low maintenance. But really, I was abandoning my own standards to keep people in my orbit. Eventually, I had to confront something uncomfortable. Effort that isn't reciprocated turns into resentment. And resentment quietly poisons friendships long before anyone admits there's a problem. Then there were the childhood friendships. The ones you're told are supposed to last forever. The ones people romanticize because of history alone. Letting those go was hard. Not because they were healthy, but because I had internalized this idea that longevity equals virtue. That if someone has known you since you were young, you're somehow obligated to make it work no matter how misaligned you become. But outgrowing people doesn't make you cold. It means you're honest. Some friendships stop fitting because of values. Some because of lifestyle. Some because the person I became was no longer compatible with the version of me they remembered or wanted me to stay as. Realizing that about those relationships wasn't dramatic. It was clarifying. And once I let go of the idea that time served automatically equals emotional safety, everything shifted. I became more intentional. I stopped confusing fun with friendship. I stopped forcing depth where there was no effort. I stopped chasing people who treated connection like an option instead of a responsibility. And that's when the quality of my relationships changed. Now, the friendships in my life are reciprocal. They're grounded. They're emotionally safe. People show up. They check in, they celebrate my wins, and sit with me in quieter moments. And because that effort is mutual, I show up better too, without keeping score, without overthinking, and without resentment. These are the most fulfilling friendships I've ever had. Not because they're perfect, but because they're intentional. The way I approach friendship now is a lot simpler than it used to be, but it's also a lot more honest. And it really comes down to 3 angles that I return to over and over again. First, you have to be the friend you want. This sounds obvious, but most people skip the hard parts of it. Being the friend you want doesn't mean being endlessly available or over-functioning for other people. It means practicing the basics with consistency, initiating instead of waiting, following through instead of leaving things vague, showing up when you say you will, not just when it's convenient or exciting. If you want friends who reach out, ask yourself if you reach out. If you want friends who follow through, ask yourself how often you cancel or mention circling back. If you want friends who show up emotionally, ask yourself whether you disappear when things feel uncomfortable. Friendship isn't built on intention, it's built on behavior. And when I started aligning my behavior with the kind of friendship I wanted to receive, everything got clearer, very fast. It's also important to categorize honestly. This one was a game changer for me. Not everyone in your life is meant to occupy the same lane, and forcing people into roles they don't have capacity for is how resentment starts. Some people are social friends. Fun, easy, great in group settings. Some people are emotional support friends. Safe, private, reliable. And some people are situational, connected to a job, a season, or a routine. None of those categories are bad. The problem is when you overinvest emotionally where the capacity is low. Once I stopped expecting depth from people who were only offering proximity, I felt so much lighter. Instead of trying to force closeness, I adjusted my expectations. And suddenly, I wasn't disappointed all the time, because I was no longer asking people to be something they clearly weren't. Lastly, and most importantly, nurture what's mutual. I used to think friendship meant constant expansion, more people, more plans, more connections. Now I think it's about maintenance, depth over quantity, care over novelty, consistency over constant growth. The friendships that thrive in my life now are the ones where effort flows both ways, where checking in doesn't feel awkward, where making plans doesn't feel like pulling teeth, where support isn't performative, it's embodied. I don't spend my energy chasing anymore. I spend it nurturing what already shows up for me. And that shift alone has made my friendships calmer, richer, and infinitely more fulfilling. Before we wrap this up, I want to give you something concrete, because insight without action is just awareness cosplay. I'm calling it the Be Better Challenge. And while it's simple, it's not passive. I want you to think about one person you actually care about. Not the person you feel obligated to keep around. Not the person you're chasing. Not the person who drains you. One real relationship that matters. And within the next 48 hours, I want you to choose one of these actions. Send the text you've been meaning to send, the one you keep drafting in your head but never actually publish. Make the plan with a real date and a real time. Not that we should hang out soon purgatory. Offer a real apology. Not a justification, not a paragraph. Just naming the impact and committing to the change. Or, if you've been honest with yourself and you know this connection has run its course, lovingly release it instead of keeping it half alive out of habit. This isn't about fixing everything. It's about choosing one moment of integrity in how you show up. Because being a better friend doesn't start with grand gestures. It starts with one clean, intentional move. And that's the Be Better Challenge. Being a better friend isn't about being perfect. It's not about never missing a text. It's not about always knowing the right thing to say. It's about being consistent. It's about being accountable. It's about being someone who feels emotionally safe to love and be loved by. Because love isn't a feeling you claim. It's a pattern you practice. And if this episode stirred something in you, if it made you think about how you show up, or where you've been passive, or where you've been carrying more than you share, that's not shame. That's information. Season 1 of the show was about internal clarity, self-respect, self-trust, learning how to listen to yourself again. Season 2 is about outward expression, how that clarity actually shows up in your life, in your work, and in your relationships. And friendship is one of the first places your new self should be visible. Not in words, in patterns, in follow through, in how people feel when they're in your orbit. Because the kindest thing you can do is be real. Real about your patterns, real about your impact, real about what you need to change. I'm Richard, and thanks for getting real with me today. You just finished listening to I Mean This in the Nicest Way Possible, written and produced by Richard Armand Mills.